Your Eminence, Your Grace, Reverend Fathers, beloved co-panelists, esteemed guests, good afternoon. Christ is risen. Christos Anesti, El Mashiach Kam. First and foremost, I would like to thank Father Nathaniel and his wonderful team for hosting this colloquium on Orthodox Christianity and Humanitarianism, a topic in which the Orthodox voice is imperative, especially in today's society, which is rapidly becoming more depressed, egocentric, and apathetic. I am honored to be a part of this most distinguished group of presenters, and I would like to thank all of you for your wonderful presentations, and that they have taught me so much as a novice on the topic of Orthodox Christianity and humanitarianism. And I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm the youngest member of this panel, and these experiences and everything that they've done throughout the world are truly humbling and inspiring for me. So, and I also am cognizant of the fact that I'm about to present on a topic that's very sensitive. So please forgive me. I'm a recent graduate of the school. I went to Jerusalem, so these are not the official views of the church or of anyone else. These are my own personal experiences there. So being a first-generation Greek and a product of our beloved seminary here in Brookline, I was confident that I possessed all the tools necessary to see a pristine picture of what Orthodox Christianity is, or what it should be at the very least. I believe that my reading of the Gospel and the Desert Fathers of Egypt and Syria and Palestine, while also coming from a parish whose spiritual father is a Jerusalemite, would have prepared me for the reality that awaited me after my theological matriculation. Boy, was I wrong. The Jews of West Jerusalem and the Muslims dominating the very narrow old city roads leading up to the Damascus Gate. Christians, both indigenous and pilgrims, gathering just within the Jaffa Gate, only steps away from the ultimate physical and mystical manifestation, expression of love, namely the most venerable Church of the Resurrection. Looking back at my journey 3 years later in the holiest city of the world, I realized that nothing could have prepared me for the sobering reality that we call the Jerusalem effect today. I realized quite quickly that Jerusalem is the city of both the crucifixion and the resurrection. The peripheral knowledge of Christian historicity in the greater Middle East has cast a veil of mystery over our understanding of what a Christian presence truly means in the region. The Christian right to exist in today's tumultuous Middle East is not exclusively a religious or historical debate, but more of a humanitarian priority, which is of equal importance. The Orthodox Church's relationship with the Ottoman Sultanate was ambiguous at best. First, the Roman community was tolerated under the Rum Millet system, granting a certain internal autonomy to local non-Ottoman citizens. But on the other hand, the Church was penalized with exorbitant taxes to the extent that it was not able to appropriate the funds needed for humanitarian work and education among its flock. At the turn of the 19th century, ecclesiastical infrastructure in the Holy Land was completely dictated by imperial Ottoman decrees, also known as firmans, rather than by the local synod, which is the governing body of the Church. The ancient Patriarchate of Jerusalem, popularly referred to as the Church of the Resurrection within indigenous Orthodox circles in Jerusalem's Old City, has had to endure its fair share of oppression, humiliation, and revolt, even remaining orphaned and without a Jerusalem-based patriarch for 200 years. Yet the Patriarchate remains resilient in its role as Mother Sion, or Mother Zion, and in its understanding of its apostolic mission. It remains a beacon of the resurrection amid an area that can be regarded as a political, diplomatic, and humanitarian Golgotha. As the only local and autocephalous church in the Holy Land, the Patriarchate of Jerusalem humbly enjoys its position as head of all Christians, a prestige that is unmatched throughout the Holy Land. The Church of Jerusalem took form on Pentecost with the descent of the Holy Spirit on the apostles of Mount Zion. Within Justin's blueprint of Byzantine Pentarchy, the bishopric of Jerusalem was granted ecclesiastical autonomy from its sister church of Antioch and elevated to the status of Patriarchate at the Fourth Ecumenical Council in Chalcedon. Today, the Patriarchate's role in the Holy Land is not only limited to a mere regulated spiritual entity like all other religious institutions that have come after it, but rather to a political and diplomatic influence. After the State of Israel, the Patriarchate of Jerusalem is the largest landholder in Israel, which allows for the Church to carry out rich humanitarian initiatives. Under its current Patriarch, His Beatitude Theophilus III, the Patriarchate assumes a vivacious and insatiable humanitarian initiative, which was not always the case, however. The Christian existence in the Holy Land was inseparably linked to the political developments in every age. The 19th century, for instance, proved to be a crucial point in the Patriarchate's history. Humanitarian work for the Patriarchate at this time was extremely bleak and almost non-existent. The Patriarchate fought to liberate itself from subservience to Constantinople and Russia, who fiddled the Ottomans into their own game of divide and conquer. We can attribute this inability to execute humanitarian work to two reasons. First, all previous patriarchs of Jerusalem for a span of 200 years were elected and resided in Constantinople. According to Theodore Edward Dowling, a historian on the Patriarchate, Constantinople was found a more secure and peaceful residence for occupants of the thrones of Antioch and Jerusalem than the cities from which their titles derived. In essence, this rendered the Patriarchate's monastic entity, the Brotherhood of the Holy Sepulchre, and the indigenous Rum flock fatherless until the 1845 election of the 128th Patriarch of Jerusalem, Kyrillos II. This consequently placed the Patriarchate at a tremendous disadvantage, as it allowed an Ottoman-sponsored and unwelcomed Russian meddling in the internal affairs of the Patriarchate, giving shape and form to many controversies still faced by the Patriarchate today, namely the Greek-Palestinian issue. Reoccurring over time, this issue has proven to be a tremendous handicap to what the Church believes to be its inherited, salvific, historical, and humanitarian mission. Secondly, the Patriarchate owns many waqf, which are personal endowments given to the Church, either by clergymen of the Patriarchate, by families of these clergymen, or people who, at the end of their lives, who have terminal illnesses, that want to give something back to the Church of Jerusalem and be buried near where our Lord was crucified and resurrected. Secondly, in Palestine and abroad, they own waqf in Palestine and abroad. The history of the acquisition of these waqf date back to as early as 1523. This allowed the dynamic duo of the Russian state and church to coerce the Ottomans to seize patriarchal waqf and freeze bank accounts, forcing the Patriarchate to forsake any type of humanitarian effort. This is one of the greatest challenges that faced the Patriarchate in the 19th century, the rapid growth of Latin and Protestant missionaries to the Holy Land. The Latin presence in the Holy Land, which is made up of the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem, the custody or custos of the Holy Land, the Melkite Greek Catholic, the Maronites, the Syrian Catholics, and the Armenian Catholics offered an array of attractive humanitarian amenities to members of an internally divided Jerusalem Orthodox Church in an attempt to further solidify its presence and influence in the world's holy city. The election of Archbishop Theophilos of Mount Tabor as the 141st primate of the Church of Jerusalem and successor to St. James, the brother of our Lord, on August 22, 2005, inaugurated a new chapter in the life of the Patriarchate. For the past decade, humanitarianism has become a top priority for the Patriarchate and for his beatitude personally. The Church's current patriarchal administration has brought an atmosphere of reform and a feeling of renewal when walking through Jerusalem's Christian quarter. The main face of the Patriarchate's humanitarian initiative has been, and always will be, education. Christianity is not actively being eradicated from the very lands of its genesis, but at the same time, no active measures have been taken by Israel nor Palestine to vouchsafe its protection. As of 1964, 30,000 Christians resided within Jerusalem's Old City Ottoman walls. Today, very few Christians choose to remain in Jerusalem due to oppressive domestic policies against Palestinians and demonstrations of religious prejudice and bigotry by religious zealots. The Patriarchate of Jerusalem believes that education is the key to understanding the political dissidents in the area. Aside from the whole political spectrum of indifference, education is the best component for vouchsafing the future of existence for Christians in their homeland. During the Ottoman rule in the Holy Land, lasting from the early 16th century until 1922, the only schools that existed were those under the Patriarchate of Jerusalem. Today, the Patriarchate, within its immediate canonical jurisdiction of Israel, Palestine, and Jordan, fully funds 18 schools that enroll more than 8,500 Muslims and Christians and employing more than 800 of a similar demographic. During the Arab conquest, the Patriarchate was Arabicized in both administration and language. Today, the patriarchal schools continue this tradition of Arabic language preservation, while also incorporating Hellenic thought and English as cornerstones of its curriculum. The Arab Orthodox Society is a charitable organization under the auspices of the Patriarchate that provides medical care and employment to local, unfortunate, ill, or unemployed Palestinians. The Society runs a museum, a cultural center, an embroidery shop, a bakery, a coffee shop, and formerly an internet cafe. One of the Society's major projects is the foundation of the St. Benedictus Medical Center in the Old City, named after former Patriarch of Jerusalem, Benedictos Papadopoulos, who was Patriarch of Jerusalem from 1957 until 1980. The clinic has been in operation for the past 35 years. Following the Arab-Israeli War, thousands of refugees fled to the Old City for refuge, thus commencing the Arab Orthodox Society's medical program. A general practitioner and a nurse provided medical care and free medicine to the poorest and most severely ill. In June 1967, much harder conditions were imposed on the Palestinian population due to the Israeli occupation. Again, the numbers of those desperate for medical care reached thousands. Throughout the crisis, the Society continued to provide medical assistance, though very limited in comparison to the immense needs of new refugees and the lack of adequate funding and professional resources. Subsequently, the Society conducted a comprehensive needs assessment of the Old City's population and began discussions with the Patriarchate, with the blessings of His Beatitude Patriarch Benedictus I of Jerusalem, to determine whether adequate premises for the clinic could be found. Finally, in 1979, the Patriarchate provided the present St. Benedictus Medical Center. Today, the clinic provides services to anyone at a reduced rate or pro bono. These services are in 15 specialized areas. These services include general medicine, general surgery, ear, nose, throat, dermatology, diabetes clinic, internal medicine, gynecology, obstetrics, radiology, urology, orthopedics, dentistry, clinical psychology, neurology, and cardiology. The Wujud, literally meaning existence, is a cultural center, a museum celebrating Palestinian heritage housed in a historic building donated by the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate. The museum overlooks one of the Old City's two dry pools, Hezekiah's Pool, also known as the Bath of the Patriarchs. It was abandoned for 42 years until the Patriarchate decided to purchase the building, and it was then renovated on May the 14th, 2010. The Wujud includes an ethno-museum, cultural center, and a cafeteria. The holy shrines serve as sanctifying agents via pilgrimage, or as His Beatitude Theophilus III refers to them as proskinimatiki theoria, or the contemplation of Orthodox pilgrimage. The holy shrines assume both a salvific and humanitarian mission. Thus, the most venerable Church of the Resurrection, commonly known as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Western terminology, can be viewed as the humanitarian agent par excellence. Since 1948, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been detrimental for the Palestinian people. The majority of Palestinians residing within the West Bank separation wall, who do not possess a valid ID or permit, are not allowed to visit Jerusalem to see family, to look for work, or even to venerate the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This inhumane manner of limiting domestic terrorism has shaped the way the Patriarchate views humanitarianism. The Patriarchate considers the holy shrines as ambassadors of humanitarianism, in which the holy shrines imbue and exude hope and reconciliation to both Palestinians and Israelis, and to all who come to venerate. In 2008, the World Monuments Fund listed the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, located 10 kilometers south of Jerusalem, on the 100 most endangered sites. By way of the Palestinian Authority, the Patriarchate of Jerusalem, in collaboration with the other main representations in the Church, the Franciscans and the Armenians, spearheaded the dire renovation of the church. At the initiative of Patriarch Theophilos, the donation from Russian President Vladimir Putin to alleviate the Christian community's heavy burden of funding their renovation. And as a side note, President Putin offered $5 million to the renovation of the Church of the Nativity, because the three main communities in the church couldn't decide who wanted to pay for it, because it comes down to status quo. Because whoever pays and whoever pays, it's implied that they're the sovereign power there. So there was this tug of war over power, and it was much more than just an renovation. So finally, Russia says enough's enough. Figure it out. We'll give you $5 million, and then it was assumed by the United Nations. So the church's building complex became the first Palestinian site to be listed as both a World Heritage Site and as a heritage site in danger. Despite opposition from the United States and Israel, the normal 18-month process for most sites was bypassed, and its case was expedited, as it is suffering from immense damages due to water leaks. The 4th until the 7th centuries can be regarded as the golden period of monasticism in the Holy Land. At some point during this period, it is recorded that 6,000 monks, consequently martyred by Persian invaders in 613, and 72 churches dwelled in the deserts of Palestine. Today, one of the Patriarchate's most thriving and humanitarian-minded monasteries, Abba Gerasimos the Jordanite in Jericho is situated a mere 5 miles from the banks of the Jordan River, where Christ was baptized, revealing for the first time his divine nature. Once viewed as an act of punishment or exile by monks of the Brotherhood of the All-Holy Tomb, this monastery has flourished the past 40 years under the pastoral care of Archimandrite Chrysostomos Tabulareas, a monk from Thessaloniki who joined the Brotherhood almost half a century ago. With the grace of God, the abbot was able to transfigure the monastery from what seemed like just a mere ditch in the sand into a beautiful oasis in the desert. Aside from this, Father Chrysostomos has been very active within the Muslim community of Jericho. Quite literally, most families are on the payroll system at the monastery. The monastery of Abba Gerasimos gives scholarship to Palestinian children to study while also providing provisions such as notebooks, pencils, books, and computers. The monastery also offers groceries to families in extreme poverty who do not even have the basics to buy a loaf of bread for their hungry children. When asked why he supports Muslim families, Father Chrysostomos responds that they too have been fashioned in the image and likeness of God. In the Holy Land, the monastery of Abba Gerasimos is regarded as a second patriarchate because of its enormous humanitarian work that it provides the less significantly fortunate Muslim inhabitants of Jericho. This monastery truly embodies the words of St. Chrysostomos, John Chrysostomos, when he states that feeding hungry is greater than raising the dead. And to my last point, I know that I'm running out of time, but this is very important. When speaking about war and occupation, no scene is more horrific than that of the Gaza Strip, the world's largest open-air prison. The draconian treatment of Gaza and its residents have left an irreversible stamp on modern history. The Christian presence in Gaza dates back to the 4th century, when a wealthy and pious Egyptian hermit from Thessaloniki is elected bishop of the recalcitrant pagan city of Gaza. Consequently, St. Porphyrios would demolish pagan temples and convert the entire city to Christianity by preaching Christ and his gospel to the Greeks, Jews, and pagans, validating his missionary and humanitarian work by his exemplary ascetic life. Today, only 1,400 Christians remain in Gaza, Orthodox, Catholics, and Protestants, dominated by 1.8 million Muslims. Christians only make up 0.08% of the total population terrorized by Hamas. Throughout history, Gaza has been known to be an extremely inhospitable and arid to its inhabitants. Located in the Zaytun quarter of Gaza, the Church of St. Porphyrios is the ancient city's oldest active church. Besides this impressive historical milestone, humanitarian work is a daily routine for the Patriarchate's only church in the Gaza Strip. 96% of accessible water is contaminated. In 2008 and 2009, 2014 Gaza Strip wars left nearly 4,000 casualties. One could literally regard Gaza as hell on earth. Israel's 2009 invasion of Gaza was an act of aggression that included over 1,000 Palestinian fatalities, decimating an already depleted area. During last summer's Gaza Strip war, the Church of St. Porphyrios provided mattresses, plastic chairs, foods, blankets, and toys to bereaved Palestinian families. In a recent interview with Reuters, His Eminence Archbishop Alexios of Tiberias, representative of the Patriarchate in Gaza, states that we have opened the church in order to help people. This is the duty of the church, and we are doing all we can to help them. At the beginning, there were 600 people, and today there became 1,000, mostly children and women. Some of those children are only a week old. In closing, the cold reality is, more than often, I felt like a stranger amongst strangers when living in Jerusalem. Nevertheless, this type of mentality cannot and must not deter us from reaching out to those who love us and to those who hate us, to those who plead for our help and to those who do not. We cannot allow this mental epidemic to prevent us from reaching our goal, the acquisition and love of both our neighbor and our enemy, which is to return to the very likeness of God. Each Greek American and non, each Orthodox Christian and non, can play a fundamental role in the forward progression of the Holy Land, indiscriminate of gender, ethnicity, or religion. Thank you.